So today's topic here is that we're going to talk about is that we're going to introduce you to Bolt NotifyMe and how it can help to reduce false alarms in your monitoring centers. We do know that false alarms is really a huge problem, if you will, in the security industry today. As you would see, what Bolt Technologies continues to do is that issues that affect you, we try to come up with business solutions to meet those needs. And Bolt NotifyMe is one of those solutions that can help reduce false alarms in the security industry. So we're going to talk about why we chose to do this, and then we're going to have a live demo that's going to be conducted by Blake today. And we're going to just really jump into this here. So I'm actually going to introduce Blake Galvin. He's getting prepared to do the demo here, but we want to just speak briefly here before we get started of how often you deal with false burglary alarms. Blake?
All right. Thank you, Brian. And I believe, Karen, we might have another poll that you wanted to run really quick, but just to touch on that, you know, running Bolt NotifyMe does require some specific version updates. So those who attended the user conference last year might remember that you know, Bolt NotifyMe was launched right around that time last year, and you know, over the course of the last year, we've gotten some really great feedback from our customers who have started to implement Bolt NotifyMe, you know, rolling it out to their end users, using it in really creative and interesting ways as well. So it is important to note that if you're on 164, some of the changes or some of the things we'll be showing today do require an update to patch 19. So the latest version of 164 that we have out, or if you've already gone through the upgrade to Manitou Neo to 2.0, those updates would be in patch 7. So we did want to run a really quick poll, so I'll hand it off to Karen.
All right, yeah.
Really quick.
Wonderful. Thanks, Blake. Yeah, we'd like to just see where people are on their versions. Do you have older than 163? Do you have 163, 164? Or are you on 164 update 19 or newer? Or are you all the way up in Manitou Neo? Just see how people are progressing on their updates to Manitou so we can see where we need to go and how far we are already progressing. And let's go ahead and close that poll. And we're going to share those results. So it looks like we have a lot of people on 164, but not quite up to the update 19 yet. And it looks like we do have still a few people that are not quite up on 163, so we want to get you up updated as soon as possible so that we can get you on the very latest of that, and also to get you involved in the Bolt NotifyMe product as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that and go ahead and get that back over to you, Blake.
Okay.
All right. Brian, if you wouldn't mind switching over presentation.
Absolutely. There you go, Blake.
So before we sort of jump into the live demo, I did want to touch on, you know, really why, you know, Bolt Technologies decided to roll out Bolt NotifyMe and sort of, you know, the why behind the product. So, you know, really with the booming, you know, do-it-yourself home residential market, with even with small businesses and a lot of those commercial accounts where, you know, you may have a global key holder or a manager, people who just want to be notified about alarms that are going on at their home, at their business, and be able to react to those alarms, you know, either via their key holders in a small business or just a member, family members, you know, who they know somebody's at home, so they want to make sure that they're safe and secure and be notified, you know, immediately on these types of alarms. So, you know, really the point is to create efficiency for, you know, our partners, our central stations, knowing that when you receive a verified event through a mobile app, there are some things you can do to prioritize those alarms on your side, creating efficiencies for operators and alarm handling, as well as allowing those end users, your residential customers, your commercial customers, to cancel their own false alarms preemptively, never involving an operator, and again, creating efficiencies on both sides of alarm handling. So let's see. I believe Karen had one other poll question really quick before we jump into the actual live demo.
I certainly did. Yep, absolutely. I know that when I was managing a central station, we definitely dealt with a lot of false alarms, especially around the opening and closing times when it came to burglary alarms. So I wanted to go ahead and launch this poll for about how often do you deal with false burglar alarms? So go ahead and estimate about how often do you run into false burglar alarms in your monitoring center. And we're going to go ahead and close that poll out and share the results. Pretty much what I expected. Almost more than 75% of the time we were dealing with false alarms when it comes to burglary alarms. So NotifyMe is really a great opportunity to sort of help quash a lot of those burglar alarms and get rid of those being false. Back to you, Blake.
All right, thank you, Karen. So at this time, everybody should be able to see my screen, the Manitou Neo client that we're looking at here. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was a little bit of the back end of the system, what goes into adding a key holder who's going to receive push notifications, how can we manage it on our side through the management portal. So if we jump into our contact list here on our Bold Technologies account, we can see our whole list of key holders. And if we jump into the contact points for those key holders, we can see a new contact point type of push notification. So the two requirements for registering a key holder, whether that's somebody on their home or a commercial business, the only requirements is that we would create this new contact point type of push notification, and that we assign a password to that key holder. So when we assign a password on most of your systems, you're going to get that automatic prompt that also requires adding the permissions of being able to cancel an alarm. That's, of course, an important permission for the functionality of the app to be able to take in a response from the app and cancel an alarm on behalf of the key holder. So on the data entry side for your central stations, there's not a whole lot to adding users to the app. So once they're in place, at that point you would notify the customer that they can go ahead and download the app from the Apple Store, from the Google Play Store, and go ahead and register their app with the central station. When they do so, they're going to be asked for just two pieces of information: their mobile number tied to push notifications and the password that has been assigned in Manitou to them. If we jump into our Bold NotifyMe management portal, for any of the sites, once you've signed up for Bold NotifyMe, you would have access to this management portal in your central station. There are a few details to review about your central station. Just some technical information, linking your central station ID to services that get installed on your system. So one of the requirements of the implementation is that a technician will get on your system, set up this connection between the cloud notification services and your Manitou system. So there's a URL with an SSL certificate that would be required. Responses from the app come in through your BoldNet server. So one of the other requirements to Bold NotifyMe is having a BoldNet server for receiving those replies to push notifications and the two-way communication between the apps and your central station. So we create a specific user for that information to be passed back and forth through your BoldNet. In one optional service that we've also included with Bold NotifyMe is the Bold Text Me service. So some of you may have seen that we rolled out Bold Text Me earlier this year as a means of SMS notification from Manitou. It's really a replacement service for some of those third-party partners we work with right now, like your Clickatels and Bold or bulk messaging for sending, receiving SMS messages from Manitou. This is a nice way if some of those key holders on a call list don't have the app, we can send them a text message through Bold Text Me to notify me of the availability of the app and allow them to interact in a limited way. So we can tie a Bold Text Me service to your Notify Me services as well. If we jump over to the users, this is where you can add other additional administration users to your Notify Me management portal. And then under the dealers, this is where we're going to see specific dealers that we have enabled. Oh, I actually need to log out and log back in. So if we go back, give me just a moment. This is where you're going to be able to control and see the different dealers who you've worked with to register through the service. And if we jump into any one of those dealer accounts, we can see users we've authorized for the dealer and customer accounts under that dealer who have registered apps to your system. If we jump into any one of those accounts, we can see all of the specific key holders at that site, whether or not they've registered their app, and whether, the device that they currently have registered. So whether that's an Android phone, an Apple phone. One of the new features is that you can actually, with your app, register across multiple devices. So that can be an iPad or, a Surface tablet, as well as, with your Android and Apple phones. So that's just a little bit of the background housekeeping items, that go along with the system. So with that, Karen, do we have any pressing questions that we want to answer right away, or kind of jump into the live demo?
I think we can jump into the live demo. There was a question about being able to send an embedded link, but I believe we're going to need to follow up on that.
Okay, perfect. So let me pull up my phone here. So I've linked my phone here to our in-house Bold Technologies account. So I'm going to go ahead and send in a manual signal, and we'll take a look at what the push notification looks like on the phone. Bear with us in a sort of one monitor demo setting. We'll need to flip back and forth between my phone and the demo screen, what you're seeing in Manitou, but we'll try to make that as smooth as possible. So we're going to send in a burglary alarm and take a look at what that looks like in the app. So at this point, the burglary alarm, the signal, would have hit our central station. If we jump over to actually our alarm queue really quick, you'll notice we don't have anything in the alarm queue. If we jump back into our customer account and take a look at the activity log, you can see a pending burglary alarm has come in on the system. And if we pull up my phone again, you'll see a couple of notifications that have come in through the app. So if we jump directly into our burglary alarm, we can already see one of the other key holders on the chat has sent me a message. So they're just asking if we can look into this alarm. Once we pull up the alarm, we're going to have some basic alarm details available to us. We can see the type of alarm, obviously, we've gotten in. We can see a countdown timer. So the countdown timer is going to relate directly to some specific programming that we've set up on our customer account. If we jump into the programming here real quick, we're going to see some can cancel programming, which hopefully a lot of you guys are familiar with. We've set up a particular event code that we want NotifyMe to be able to handle. We've set a restoral event code, as well as a reset timer event code. So for any event you want to handle, you're basically going to have 3 event codes associated. So we have our burglary alarm, our burglary restoral, and our burglary reset. In the timing of the can cancel, you see we've set that to 600 seconds or 10 minutes, which correlates directly to our countdown timer within the app. So that's going to be simply an agreement between yourself, the central station, and your end users, your customers, where they want a certain number of time or amount of time to be able to handle a false alarm event. In this type of contract or agreement, they would be taking on the liability of having the convenience of being able to cancel their alarm and not have to deal with the central station or the police. And so they're agreeing to take on that liability, which is important for the central station. So another thing to note when we're going through this is that everything done in the app outside of the conversation that key holders are having are logged responses to your Manitou system. So anytime one of the key holders with the app cancels an alarm, resets a timer, verifies an alarm, a comment will be inserted into your Manitou database for your audit trail, for your history, letting you know which specific key holder took that action or inaction. If we jump back over to our alarm here real quick and take a look at the activity, we can see it actually looks like somebody just reset the timer on the alarm, so that must have been one of our other key holders. And we have a message. So inside of the chat, we can have our two-way communication between any of the key holders on the contact list who have downloaded the app would have that added functionality. So we can see our entire contact list here. If I needed to initiate a phone call to Miriam, who asked me about this alarm, I can jump into the contact list, click on the phone, and that's going to take me straight to my phone dialer to be able to call Karen or Miriam here in our example. If I go back to the app, let's go ahead and we'll cancel this out as a false alarm. So I'm going to let Miriam know that I'm looking into the alarm, and I'm going to send an update to Miriam. So everybody who's involved in the chat or has the app would be receiving these push notifications with the additional chat bubbles. Let's go ahead and cancel our alarm now. Any action we take through the app is going to require our password. So again, that's the password we've already set on the Manitou system. Let's go ahead and submit our cancel. If we jump back into, well, you'll notice right away that inside of the app that the alarm's been canceled. If we take a look at our activity within the app, we can all see specific NotifyMe actions that have been taken by other users. We can see there that Miriam reset our timer. So we do have a limited access to the activity log through the app. If we jump back into our customer accounts real quick and our activity log, we'll sort of see the flow of our original alarm came in. Any of the actions taken by either myself or Miriam get logged with the respective comments. So we received our reset to reset our timer, eventually being canceled by myself, Alfred. So that's just sort of the first scenario we wanted to cover, being able to cancel a false alarm. Karen, were there any questions we maybe wanted to jump into at this point before we move on to the verification of an alarm?
There are some excellent questions coming through. Let me scroll back up. There's a few that jumped in. One is, what's the difference between cancel and verify alarm? So if you can speak to that.
Sure. So verifying an alarm through Bold NotifyMe is going to drop the alarm to the alarm queue to be actioned by one of your operators. So if we're verifying an alarm through the app, we, as key holders of the site, we're calling this a legitimate alarm. We may have seen somebody broke into the residence or our commercial site. The other instance where an alarm would be verified is through inaction as well. So if any of the key holders who have the app simply don't respond within the allotted time, the alarm is going to drop to the alarm queue as a legitimate event, just like it would if we hadn't sent the push notification in the first place.
Okay, excellent. The next one was is there a way to use two-way voice from the app? I know that this is future update, including bidirectional texting, but do you have any further detail on that?
Yeah, so we can have or allow the end user, the customer, to initiate a call to the central station directly from the app. So that's going to initiate a call to the central station. As far as two-way functionality and having the app or through caller ID, I believe that's a future integration, like Karen mentioned, that we're looking to have that phone call find the operator who has, and that would need to be on a verified alarm event. So if they've verified the event, being able to initiate two-way, that could be a future feature down the road, but it's not current functionality. We can simply just initiate a phone call from the app to the central station. Okay,
excellent. The next one was, how much of a process is involved for enrolling users?
Yeah, so enrolling users, we touched on that a little bit, is basically on their systems adding the new contact point type, which is required, and making sure they have a password set on their key holder. Once those two items are in place, that's when you can notify the customer that they can download the app and register with your central station. So really just two key pieces of information. If we go back to our contact list, our push notification contact point type, and our password is set, with the permission, of course, of being able to cancel an alarm.
Okay, an excellent question just came up. Becky actually asked, this is a really good one, is what happens if multiple people enter multiple commands in the app at the same time?
Sure, great question. So through the app, if we receive a reset or a verify or a cancel, Manitou is going to action those in the order that they're received. So if key holder A sends a verification in, but then key holder B, sends a cancel, it is something that an operator would see in the activity log. So if we've picked up a verified event, for example, by a key holder, and then maybe just a few moments later we see a cancel come in from a different key holder, that would be a good clue to the operator that they are dealing with a false alarm. The customer tried to cancel it, or maybe they tried to reset the timer or anything like that. But Manitou is going to action those responses from the app in the order that they're received.
Great. Now, this is something that we were going to touch on in just a few minutes, but it says, will the app work for a global key holder or if the customer has multiple accounts? So will the app work for, basically somebody asked the same question twice in the same question. So go ahead.
Sure, no problem. So if we go back to sort of the landing page of the app, we're going to see active alarms that we have, as well as past alarms. When we're reviewing the history of our alarms inside of the app, we can see some things like the activity that took place, any chat that took place. It is important to note that the chat is private to the key holders, but if we move over to our sites, this is where a global key holder could be potentially registered with multiple sites. So if we're an area manager, we might have multiple commercial locations that we would want to receive notifications from. So under our sites, we would see that list of sites we're registered with through the Bold management or NotifyMe management portal. When we enter our phone number and we enter the password, that is going to check the Manitou system to see if we exist as a global key holder and if we exist on multiple sites in the system, and load those into our app for us.
Some questions are coming up with the verify alarm as far as it potentially confusing customers. So we can certainly talk about verbiage as things go on. So there are some things that we would love your feedback on. So I appreciate getting those questions as we get them through. Other questions that are coming up as far as the delay times. Now, our delay times set here for this demonstration were at 600 seconds for the cancels, but understand that this is completely configurable by you. And the reason why we put them in there is just so that we could have the time to step through this and talk about all the different pieces. This can be configured at 30 seconds, like a lot of you guys have in your central stations already. This can be configured at 5 minutes. It can be figured at 30 minutes, whatever it is that you need to do. So don't look at our times and think that this is set in stone. This is our times just to make sure that we can actually speak to and step through this without the stuff dropping to the alarm queue so that we can actually talk to it. So the delay times are not set in stone. They are not required to be at 600 seconds or something like that. Let's see, if someone cancels the alarm and then somebody verifies it, no, once it's canceled, so they could then always reach out and call the central station and do a verify, and someone could always create a new alarm if they needed to. There's a question here that says, will it alert a second user that clicks to verify alarm was already canceled? Basically, this is all happening live with everyone, so they're all going to receive that notification that there's been an update, so they're going to be able to see that activity as it's going through. There's been several questions about the app being private labeled. I'm going to have to verify with our development team to see if there is a white labeling or not, so I will have to follow up after our Coffee with Manitou session to find out about that. There is not currently a way. You have to have a password validation in order to cancel or to cancel an alarm, so the password is going to be the password. Now, we do encourage that password be easy to enter so that you can get that entered quickly, so that when you are verifying or canceling the alarm, it can be done efficiently. That looks like I got all the questions caught at the moment. There are some questions about video clips as we go through it, but we can speak to that as you go forward.
Sure. So what we'll do next here is we'll just kind of go through the second scenario of verifying an alarm through the app and having that drop to an operator and sort of what that looks like. So on the flip side of creating efficiency for the central station, outside of having the end users cancel their own false alarms, we do also want to be able to receive verified legitimate events from those key holders when we know we're working with an actual alarm. So let me go ahead and send in another signal to create a new push notification. So there we've received our push notifications for our alarm. So in this instance, we've received our alarm. We may be at the house or at the commercial business, and we might immediately know that this is a legitimate alarm. We had somebody break in. Maybe we see something really suspicious, and we just want to have an operator, immediately act on this alarm, involve the central station. We're going to go ahead and verify this as a legitimate event. So again, we're asked for our passcode. We're going to submit that. It'll take a moment to update, but we're going to get a new notification in our app that our central station is now actioning this alarm. So, that's just a little reassurance to the key holders that it's been sent to the central station. If we jump over to our alarm queue, once we've verified the event through the app, we've essentially in our system here created a new event code. So we call it a burglary verified. This is just a way to notify an operator, or maybe you would want to do something with the verified event to let everybody know in the central station who might be picking up the alarm that this is a legitimate event that came in from the app. We might want to increase the priority of the event so that it separates itself from a standard, burglary alarm that's come into the system. Maybe we increase the priority to 3. Maybe we just simply change our action pattern on the event. If we're receiving a legitimate event from a customer, our first step might be contacting the police or dispatching, as opposed to going through a contact list or a call list trying to get a hold of a customer. We're probably going to skip that step if we know this is a legitimate event. We don't want to call out to the customer and ask them, if this is a legitimate alarm, if they've sent that into the system. So on the flip side, creating a more streamlined action pattern for the operators is where we can create more efficiencies on the central station side when we're receiving verified events into the system. Karen, were there any other questions or another poll that we wanted to jump into?
Let's go ahead and jump into another poll, because we've been talking specifically about burglary alarms, but perhaps there are other alarms that people might want to also take advantage of Bold Notify Me. So let's go ahead and launch this poll and see what other types of alarms people might want to use Notify Me to handle and process. And let's go ahead and close this out and share our results. Yeah, failure to open close, power fails, and supervisory seem to be the most popular there. So great, I'm glad to see that. Let's go ahead and hide that. And let's see if there's any more questions that we've been added there. Now, a couple questions have come up about video. So Blake, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, so through Bold Notify Me and our central stations who are utilizing iView Now as a video partner, we do have an integration with iView Now. We unfortunately can't show it on the demo today. We're making some changes on our demo system in preparation for the users conference coming up, so that we'll be able to show it during the users conference with some different systems that we'll have in place there. But inside of the alarm, if we pull that up really quick, the functionality is that inside of the alarm, the user would have an additional button that they click. It's a video link, and that's going to take them directly to the clip that is sent into the system via iView Now. So that would be the video verification clip that was triggered by the cameras. They're going to be able to play that in an embedded video player inside of the app. And then from there, they also have access to a 4-grid video screen of each of the sets of cameras that they would have in their customer portal in iView Now. So this is exactly what an operator would see on their end when they're receiving an iView Now clip into Manitou, as well as the same thing they would see going out to the cloud portal for iView Now, being able to pull up the live video system to do any kind of additional verification. So if we're not at home, we receive a burglary alarm and we have iView Now with our system, we can see the clip that triggers it inside of the app, verify it from there, cancel. Maybe it's something tripped our motion detection. If we have outdoor cameras, cancel it from there, however we need to handle it.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Karen, just to jump in real quick, a couple of other great ideas that we've heard from customers are that if we're monitoring, say, an environmental type service where we might have multiple technicians or people who can respond to an alarm. They might be technicians or a guard service where we would want to sort of send them all notifications because they're in the area, they're working on these systems, allow them to respond and sort of claim responsibility for that type of alarm, that they're going to go and look into it as a technician, notifying the other key holders that somebody else is on it, that they're working on it. Another great use that we've heard of is actually with your system accounts in Manitou. You might want to receive push notifications on your receivers going down or certain watchdog events, within your Manitou system, sending that to supervisors around the central station to immediately notify them of actual a system event. as well. So those are just a couple of, the cool ideas we've heard, kicking around as well.
Okay, one of the other questions that have just come up is there is an additional cost for the customer for the app.
There, when we met with our steering committee, and we've got a lot of great feedback from customers who have started to roll out Bold Notify Me, and it was determined that the central stations may not want to pass on the cost of the app to an end user or a customer, whether you're offering it as a service or an add-on or something like that. So there is a one-time registration fee for the app. When an end user or customer registers with your central station, it links it to their Apple or Google account, and month to month, you would receive an invoice for the number of registrations that you've had with Bold Notify Me. Now, there are a lot of things you can do to control that. You may say that we only want to have a certain number of registrations, allowed per month. And then when we report on that, we can break it out in a lot of ways for you. You might want to break it out by dealer, pass the cost on to a dealer or a customer. So there's a lot of reporting that goes into that. But yes, there is a one-time registration cost for the app. It is 99 cents. But then that is indefinitely tied to their Google or Apple account. So if we switch devices or we register across multiple devices, the central station isn't going to get hit with multiple registration fees.
Excellent. All right. So I'm not seeing any more new questions on this topic. And it looks like we are starting to wind down on our time. So I'm going to launch one more poll question, which is basically, do you have a number of businesses or users that might have access multiple accounts? So I'm going to go ahead and launch that and see, do we have a large number or not? So we're going to go ahead and see how many people vote on this. And it's looking like it's almost a landslide in one direction, but we'll go ahead and let people vote. And we're going to go ahead and close out that poll and share the results. A resounding yes, that we have multiple users accessing multiple accounts. So adding that feature into Bold Notify Me was a great idea. All right. And looks like we're starting to get down into it. Let me see if there's any more additional questions before we start rolling this down. Looks like we're still at the bottom of the list right now. One other question that did come up is that we said it was iView Now with the video integration right into Notify Me. Right now, that is currently the only partner that's inside Notify Me. Any others right now are not, but that could change in the future. But right now, it is iView Now is our premier partner that's inside Notify Me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Bryant, I believe, and to do our little wrap up.
All righty. Thank you so much, everyone, again, for joining our Coffee with Manitou session. I'm glad you've hung in there with us here. We're really excited that we've showed this to you today. But thank you so much for joining this Coffee with Manitou session. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us that feedback and keep signing up for these Coffee with Manitou sessions. Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you so much, Blake, for presenting on today. Great job.